Hello, all theater lovers, both out and proud and on the DL, and welcome to Broadway Breakdown, a podcast discussing the history and legacy of American theater's most exclusive address, Broadway. This is the first of many series devoted to specific artists that have helped shape Broadway as we know it today, both for better and for worse. It is called A Little Sondheim Music, and it is dedicated to the musicals of one Mr. Stephen Sondheim. I'm your host, Matt Koplik, the least famous and most opinionated of all the Broadway podcast hosts, and with me today is a lover of theater, a historian of theater. You best know him from his online trivia show that he hosts with his husband, MT Trivia. Please welcome Mr. Kevin Metzger-Timson. Hello!
Hello!
How was
Thanks
your
for
intro?
having me. It was fantastic. I love that I'm now known for the trivia show.
You are. You're very known for the trivia.
You know, we do what we can.
Listen, it's better to be known for something than not known at all. Know what I mean?
I know. Well, talk about like a product of the pandemic, MT Trivia.
Truly. Well,
Here we are.
but you're also teaching the children. That's what I like about it. Because your question, first of all, I've only watched a couple because this podcast has kept me very busy and I don't have time to like watch the trivia as often as I would like, but you've had a couple of people I know on, so I will always watch, and I really like that you don't go soft on the questions, you make them difficult, and you make the guests kind of go like, oh shit, I guess I don't know anything, and I love that.
Well, yeah, because we always have three contestants. So we have the two guests that are with us, and then the audience is a third contestant. And there are some very knowledgeable people in the audience.
Oh yeah.
So that's why we tell the guests when they're like, I don't know anything about trivia, but this will be fun. We're like, don't worry, the audience will inevitably know. So, but yeah, I mean, to be fair, my husband, Chris, comes up with the actual trivia questions. So he spends days researching and I just kind of swoop in and I'm like, who do I want to hear belt today? And spend some time on YouTube coming up with like the name that diva round. And so, you know, I use my resources to my advantage.
You had one that was Christine Ebersol, and I was going crazy because whoever your guest was, it took them a solid minute, and I was shouting in my living room like it's one of the most iconic mixes of all time. Like her and Liz Calloway are like the ultimates. I was like, how can you not recognize? I was angry.
I know. We've featured Miss Ebersol a few times on the show. That pingy mix is just delicious.
Oh, so delish. Around the world, I only have eyes for you. Like, get out of my living room, Christine Ebersol.
I know. She can do no wrong. When are we getting Christine Ebersol's MAME? That's what I want to know.
Right. She did do MAME at one point.
Oh, she did it. Did she do it she did it at
Paper Mill.
Did she?
And
okay, then we've had it.
Kelly Bishop was her Vera.
Oh, fierce.
I know.
I just know the Kennedy Center with Christine Baranski.
Right. Who was her Vera for that? Oh, Harriet Harris. It's a weird pairing.
But fun.
I would love to see it, but it's definitely sort of like, not a fever dream, but it's definitely like a 2:00 cocaine infused casting of like, you know what I want to see? I want to see Christine Baranski and Harriet Harris. And just for shits and giggles, Emily Skinner's going to be our Agnes.
That's right. Emily Skinner was, well, of course, that production was famously cast by my boss, Miss Tara Rubin.
Ooh. Oh, she's employed by Tara Rubin, in case everyone wanted to know.
Yeah, so I see that poster in our office. But yeah, that Emily Skinner's Agnes Gooch, I think, is inspired casting.
I mean, she's a wonderful performer, so I would love to see anything she does. Kevin, what Sondheim musical are we discussing today?
We are discussing the OG Sondheim musical, Saturday Night.
Saturday Night. Yes, it is the first Sondheim score. It was supposed to be his Broadway debut, but things happened. We'll get into it.
Yes.
Yeah, because of the way that this podcast is going, the chronological order is shows how when they premiered in New York with a priority on Broadway. So this is coming after Passion, even though it was written about 40 years prior.
Well, I think that makes sense because the world didn't know or see it until 2000 or
we only really knew 2 songs from it at this point. We knew So Many People and What More Do I Need?
I mean, the 2 best, but
yeah, it'd be really best foot forward. So what is your history with this show? Did you know anything about it going in besides those 2 songs?
Yes, I did, because I first learned about Saturday night in college.
Mm.
When I was the kid in college that was always like, I have to sing the songs that nobody's singing. I want the obscure, I want the cut songs. And so I remember in looking for my senior showcase material, of which I spent hours, scouring the internet. That's, I think, when Saturday Night first came about, because I also went back when I was an actor, was very I fit in the world of 1920s musicals. That's kind of where I lived.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, well, this is perfect. It's young people, it's set in the 20s, and it's these songs that nobody's singing. So that's when I first kind of learned about it. And then it's always been around. I mean, the songs that, like we said, so many people in What More Do I Need? And even I learned about Isn't It because someone who was in the class above me did it for their senior showcase. So I kind of knew the score, and I even put So Many People in my wedding.
Aww.
Yeah. I mean, we cut the whole beginning part about like, I have to settle for you and I wanted somebody richer. Like, we just started at the, the verse proper. But so that's kind of how, when I first learned about it, but I didn't know until, you reached out, I didn't really know the plot beat by beat. So this was fun to read it and learn it.
Yeah, I didn't really know the plot all that well myself. I had heard the score all the way through maybe a total of 3 times before we boned up for this episode. And so I the last 2 days have been like filling my eardrums with Saturday Night and reading the script and all this other stuff and reading about it and finishing the hat and the Sondheim bio and all that good stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Weirdly, the first song from Saturday Night I ever heard, it's not the song, but who sang it. I heard What More Do I Need the first time from the Sondheim birthday concert at the Hollywood Bowl, sung by Anne Hathaway.
Yes, I've seen this clip.
Yes, it's right. It's going from that right into Opening Doors. And she does great. She cracks a little bit, but other than that, it's a really beautiful rendition.
Yeah, I mean, we forget that Anne Hathaway has that musical theater like background. So
we forget all the time, which is a shame because she's one of the few Hollywood actors, like A-list actors, who actually can like sing,
Yes.
Not like the Hollywood sing. Like, she actually could like do 8 shows a week in a musical if she wanted to.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, had Hollywood not snatched her up, I think she would be like a Sutton Foster.
Oh, 100%.
Of Broadway. Like, the skills are rusty at times now, but she still has the chops. Like,
yeah, she just, she hasn't been doing it as often as she used to.
Right.
But yeah, like, give that girl 6 months to like warm up the instrument again and she'll be good to go. It's there.
That clip of her singing from Carnival when she did it at Encores. I mean, that's not an easy sing, and she's killing it.
She is at 18 nonetheless.
Yes. I think she is a graduate of Cap 21, where I went to college. No,
she's a graduate of Vassar. And
Kristen Bell is Cap 21.
Yes, she is. Yeah. I'm really I'm not angry. I'm proud at how much I know about Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway was very important to me for a while when I was a kid. And on top of that, my cousin was really good friends with her. They went to high school together and then both went to Vassar together. And my cousin, who, Scott, shout out, by the way, he listens sometimes. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Scott is like, he does like theater, but he is essentially very different from me. He's very straight. He's very like, he loves sports. He loves to say man and guy and dude and stuff like that, which it's just so fun. Anyway, for my 12th birthday, I think, maybe 12th birthday, because it was he was graduating college and she was the year below him, so like it was his last day at Vassar, and he got a poster of Princess Diaries and got her to sign it with the happy birthday to me. So I have that poster in a storage facility about 10 blocks from where I live, and no one's ever touching it. It's my most prized possession.
Yeah, of course. It should be framed on your wall behind double planed glass.
That's the next step. I keep putting it off because I'm too afraid of like having it out in public in the open air to like get it to the framers. But
that's fair.
But that's just me being crazy. But yes. I do love her, and I actually have the full video of her in Carnival, and she's lovely. And that's like one of the hardest roles for a woman in theater, not just vocally, but like acting wise.
Yeah.
But enough about Anne Hathaway, although I could talk about her forever. Clearly I'm stalling because I don't believe that talking about Saturday Night is going to fill up a full episode. So I'm just padding. I am padding.
I told you I have opinions. I did my research. I have personal connections. I'm ready to dive in.
Okay, we're ready to dive in. Okay, so you know what? Then fuck my drag. Let's just dive in.
I mean, unless you want to just talk dream casting of Mama Rose for the next hour, which
I mean,
we've already been there.
It really just ends with Toni Collette. I just want to see Toni Collette do it at some point.
I did think that was a very inspired choice that you discussed on your Gypsy episode.
Thank you.
I was surprised and delighted by that, and it's so obvious. I'm ashamed I didn't think of it myself.
Well, it requires getting her back to Broadway in a musical, which apparently requires some pulling, but maybe one day. I also forget what I say on some of the episodes, so if I repeat myself, please say, you said that 4 episodes ago.
I love it. And also you're going to learn very quickly, like the Anne Hathaway going to Cap 21, I say things as fact, and it's like, that's actually not true. So when I say facts that aren't true, you can check me.
Oh, don't you?
I do it all the time on MC Trivia. I'm like, yeah, they played this role. And in the comments, they're like, they actually did it. I'm like, oh, okay.
They actually weren't even alive when the role was written.
Okay.
How dare you?
I don't know where I got that from.
In fact, they've been on record as to say that they will never play this role. So, actually, don't you worry. I will tell you and you're wrong. I love to do that.
Yes.
So, Saturday Night is based off of a play by the Epstein brothers, Jules and Philip, that was called Front Porch and Flatbush. And it was apparently like semi-biographical, unclear.
I heard that too.
Yeah, but you know, who's to say? They're now both dead, and at the time that Saturday Night was being written, one of them was already dead. So like, no one can confirm how much is true and how much wasn't. There's a lot of stuff in this musical where I'm like, I don't think that actually happened. All the boring stuff I totally can believe.
Yes.
Yeah. I totally believe that you played piano on a Saturday night, and I totally believe that you went to the plaza and couldn't get in. I think those are things that probably happened.
Yeah, it's like a romantic kind of, daydream of what life would have been like for the brothers in Brooklyn.
Exactly. Basically, it's like the first third of the show is like realistic, boring stuff, and then they try to like heighten the hijinks, but it kind of comes out of left field, at least just based off of what I've read. Maybe it plays better on stage, but there were some things in Act 2 where I was like, oh boy, that's a turn.
Yeah, well, I think before we even get into the nitty gritty, you and I can both agree that with Saturday Night, the score, it not only elevates the piece, but the score is significantly better than the book. I think.
Of the book that I've read, because not a lot of it is available freely anyway, I should say. I don't know if you were able to read the whole script.
I may have gotten my hands on the licensed version.
Oh, well then, she's very connected. I am not. I had to do a couple of things that I'm not proud of to just get my hands on a couple of scenes, but not the whole script. Basically, we'll get into it. I'll just say, I don't love this score. I like some things about it, but I just also kind of hate the book. So yes, the score is better.
That's fair.
Just in the sense of, I just plain don't like the book. Yes. So the way that this came about, and I talked about it at the West Side Story episode, but you know what? Screw you guys. I'm going to talk about it again. At this point, it's going to be like 2.5 months since West Side Story. So, Sondheim has graduated Williams College, and he spends a year as a TV writer, just to pay the bills, which was like, shouldn't we all be so lucky? As like, I do a year of a day job as a TV writer. Cry me a river.
Right.
Gay. So he meets a producer, Lemuel Ayres, who was also a very famous theatrical designer. He did the original Kiss Me Kate. They meet at a wedding, and they're both ushers at the wedding. And as they're there, Ayres is like, oh, I'm trying to produce this musical version of a play by the Epstein brothers, who at that point were best known for writing the screenplay for Casablanca. And he's like, I can't get someone to write the score. I asked Frank Lesser. He said no. Sometimes like, oh, well, I write songs. I'm trying to become a songwriter. And Ayres like, send me some of your things. So he sends him a couple of songs he wrote while he was at Williams. And Ayres is like, you're hired. And they start writing the show. And I guess like they like wrote the full show, I suppose. And they're trying to raise the money. And they got about half of the budget raised. And then it was announced in the New York Times it was going to come out in the 1954-55 season. And then in August, Ayres dies. Yes. And his widow gets the rights. And she at first was like, oh yeah, we'll totally put the show on. Like, don't you worry. I want to keep this going. And it becomes very clear to Sondheim. And I believe it's Jules Epstein, that's the one who's still alive at this point. It becomes very clear to them very early on that this woman has no idea how to be a producer or how to raise money. And within like a month after Ayers' death, they're like, this thing is dead. So they move on. And the good news is that the score for Saturday Night is what got Sondheim the job for West Side Story. He was auditioning for Lawrence Bernstein and Robbins for a musical they were writing. I already forgot the name of it, but it's not West Side. It was something else.
I don't know.
God, I'm going to look it up. But while I look it up, I'm going to keep going with the story. And then, the musical doesn't end up happening. And then Sondheim runs into Arthur Lawrence at a party, and he's talking about the West Side Story project. And Sondheim goes, oh, well, who's writing the lyrics? And Lawrence goes, oh, my God, I didn't even think of you. I remember your score from Saturday Night. Your music sucks, but your lyrics are great.
Poor Steve.
Poor Steve. To be fair, this is not some of Sondheim's best music, but it's still very pleasant. Like, I wouldn't call this music that sucks.
Listen, it's not bad music. It's like there are composers since then that have written inferior scores that have made it to Broadway and won awards. Like, it's when you compare it to the grand scheme of, Sweeney Todd and Into the Woods, like, yeah, it's 23-year-old Stephen Sondheim, but especially if you look at it in context of the 1954-1955 season, like, the score has high points, and also it has high points, and
we'll actually get to that season in a bit. God, why can't I still find it? Now it's pissing me off. God, it's the musical. It was like based off of a book that ends up becoming a movie, and it's about like an opera singer who loses his voice after he has his first gay experience, and then goes to Mexico where he has sex with a female prostitute and gets his voice back, and then the female prostitute kills the man he had the gay sex with, and I'm like, your classic fairy tale.
Yeah, classic.
God, what? Standard. Yeah, I'm gonna keep looking. I really want to know what it is. Anyway,
I think you talked about this in the West Side episode.
I did, and it's pissing me off because I want to say the name again, and I simply can't remember.
While you're looking, I think that what's interesting about the whole producer dying and everything, is there's a very fun anecdote that I read from when the show was happening in one of its New York versions. There was an article that was published. Why is this in the DC theater scene? But basically this man, Richard Seff, who was around in this era.
I actually have met Richard Seff a couple of times. He has a really good memoir called Supporting Player, because he's the epitome of someone who was like someone in a tree. He was an agent at one time. He was an actor at one time and was like never famous, but knew everybody and saw everything. So his memoir is literally like all the things I've seen.
Yeah, he's like a jack of all trades. And so he went and saw the show when it was done at the York back in 2014, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And as he tells the story about as he was leaving the theater, they get in the elevator because the York is underground and you have to go up. And he's in the elevator with Steve. And he turns to him, he said, Steve, I'm Dick Seff. And the last time I heard the score was at Lem Ayres' apartment at a backers audition. And, it's so great to hear it again. And without missing a beat, Steve, who doesn't even look him in the eye, just says, oh, yes, I remember Dick Seff, but that wasn't Lem Ayres' apartment. It belonged to a wealthy couple who were the inspiration for John Robert Bates's play, 6 Degrees of Separation. And then the doors opened and Steve got out and Dick Seff was just standing there like, wow, you remember. Yeah. I remember that, not to quote a...
Yes, I remember that. Serenade, by the way, is the name of the musical that they were going to do.
The gay Mexico musical.
The gay Mexico... Yes, better known as the Gay Mexico Almost Musical.
Almost Musical.
Yes. Aren't you so glad that I spent so much time figuring that out, since it has nothing really to do with this show?
Yeah, but you got to put that now on a Post-it note and stick it on your computer. So all the times in the future when you want to reference Serenade, you have it at your disposal.
I have it at my disposal. I want someone to actually turn that into a musical. I just want to see a musical about an opera singer who has gay sex for the first time and loses his voice.
Yeah, that's quite a plot point.
It is quite a plot point. Similar in some ways, one might say, to Saturday Night. Saturday Night gets shelved. It comes back in play in 1960 after Gypsy, because Julie Stein decides he wants to produce it. And they're going to have Bob Fosse direct and choreograph and star in it, which is like, what would that have been like?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Fosse had a period where he was really trying to make it as an actor and like was choreographing so he could get his name out there. And I'm like, what was that career trajectory going to look like in your head, Fosse? Like,
yeah, very strange.
Starring the man who did the dances of Pajama Game. Like,
thank God he stuck with the directing and choreography, though.
Absolutely. Not a bad performer, but yes, like history likes what he's given us. Yes. Anyway, but Sondheim basically done, like they're in the middle of casting the thing in 1960, and Sondheim basically puts an end to it. He's like, I've moved on from this. I don't think the show's very good. I think I've improved since this. So I'd rather, we just move on. So they do. And basically, from what I understand, the only time people have ever heard Saturday Night started with the Sondheim musical tribute in 1973. And then again, there was a concert in the early 80s at not the Guggenheim. The Whitney Museum. It's called the Stephen Sondheim Evening. It has Liz Callaway, Bob Gunton, Victoria Mallory, and Liz Callaway sings "What More Do I Need?" And the story that Liz Callaway says, I don't know if it's true, but she said she was the first person to publicly sing "What More Do I Need?" at least like on record.
I would believe that. I mean, when you think back, like she's iconic with the song.
She absolutely is. I just can't remember if it was ever sung at the musical tribute because I don't remember everything that was done in that tribute, but I feel like something from Saturday Night was in there. Anyway, she sang it and Vicky sang Isn't It? And she said at the that night of the concert before, when Sondheim heard that like two of his songs from Saturday Night were being performed, he was like, oh God, I'm going to put my face in my hands the entire time. I won't listen to it. And Liz Callaway does What More Do I Need? And it kills. And afterwards, Sondheim's walking around the party going, yeah, I wrote that. That's me. One of my first songs. Yeah, it's all me.
He should be proud.
He should be. I think it's a really cute song. And has a lot of attitude towards it. And sopranos in all of our colleges since then have been singing it for years.
Yeah. And I mean, and some very iconic, Broadway performers like Liz Callaway. Kelly O'Hara has her amazing version of it. There's a video online of Christiane Knoll singing it. I mean, it's like,
it's a good song.
To me, for me, What More Do I Need is one of those songs that sounds like New York City. It's up there for me with like Autumn in New York, We'll Have Manhattan, New York State of Mind, those kind of like New York songs that when you hear just kind of take you back to the city and take you back, not to quote Anything Goes, but take me back to Manhattan, like, and I think that is, it so kind of taps into the attitude of living in New York and what it's like. I think everyone, when they're in college and they're like dreaming of getting to New York, this idea of the city can be so dreary and gray, but also so wonderful at the same time is, inspiring. So
yeah, I had Brittany Coleman on to talk about Company, and she talked about how not getting married today to her feels almost like, in its own weird way, a love letter to New York, but like the New York that's not picturesque, the Hudson floating with garbage and all that stuff. And I think this song is like really that, which is this love letter to a city, but like to all the things about it that are kind of gross. Yeah, like it's not, the Empire State Building, isn't it majestic? Oh, in Central Park in the fall. It's or like that woman in 30 Rock. There's nothing like New York in the spring. It's nothing like that. It's like, oh God, look at the hobo on the corner. Look at the people packed on the subway. Oh, look at the dirty snow. Isn't it beautiful?
A wall of rain as it turns to sleet. The lack of sun on a one-way street. I love the grime all the time, and what more do I need? My window pane has a lovely view, an inch of sky and a fly or two. Why, I can see half a tree, and what more do I need?
The dust is thick and it's calling.
He talks about how when he was writing this score, he was really sort of trying to mimic the writers at the time. And you can hear pieces of him come through. But I think part of the reason why the show's not super successful and why he's not really proud of it, he talks about the show as like his baby pictures. Like, this is, where I grew up with.
Yes.
Where that's not a sentence, where I grew up with. But you know what? We know what I mean.
Yes.
But I talked about it before, and I think the only really musical where Sondheim's able to write like a fully non-judgmental like love song is in Sweeney Todd, and the only way he can get into it is by making Joanna and Anthony just like so simplistic that they're almost kind of a joke. But like the song Joanna is so beautiful and so heartfelt, but in the context of the show you're like, this sweet kind of dum-dum who's singing this beautiful song. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he still is able to layer in some darkness, this idea of I'll steal you.
Yeah. No,
but yeah, I agree that is Sondheim at his most lusciously romantic.
Yes. He never really writes the way he wrote for West Side Story ever again. And that is, I think there's a lot of merit to that, but there are times when I wish that he would maybe go back sometimes to that wholehearted, non-judgmental, like romantic attitude. It's as we were recording this episode, the Do I Hear a Waltz episode just came out, and Adam Ellsbury and I talked about how like he needed that attitude to write that show because he's too removed and kind of condescending to the material and to the characters. So like none of the love songs in Do I Hear a Waltz make any sort of impact because he's like, oh, this kind of romance, and it's you can hear it. He's like kind of rolling his eyes half the time.
Yeah, I actually think Sondheim's true love songs are about things other than romantic relationships between two people. I think where you really get a sense of like unabashed love of something comes in some, his writing of friendships or his writing of children, like in Into the Woods, or, like even in Merrily, the song they sing at the party, the
Good Thing Going.
Good Thing Going. Like
I was about to say Rich and Happy. That's my favorite love song.
Yeah, Rich and Happy, cut. But you know what I mean? Like Good Thing Going, like there's a simplistic just love. It feels like a love letter at times to me.
Yeah, it's even songs like Old Friend in Merrily or like Good Thing Going, there either has to be something kind of going against the grain with it, or it has to be in context of something else that like itself is not super lushly romantic. So like Good Thing Going is played at like it's a performative song at a party, right. And then like Old Friend still has to have that like argumentative section, and it doesn't really end in this like really lushly romantic way. The only song in Merrily that I would argue is like super what's the word I'm looking for? Open-minded, I guess, or like pure is Our Time. But even that in context of the show, like while it is this beautiful and simple song, because of where it comes in the show and what we've seen lead up to it, it also has a melancholy about it that like on its own, if you were to pluck Our Time out of the show, you'd be like, wow, Sondheim wrote this really beautiful, optimistic song. But in context of Merrily, it's like, oh, it's beautiful and optimistic. And it makes me sad knowing how miserable these guys are going to be in 15 years.
Absolutely. And I think that's why Sondheim out of context so often doesn't work as well as then when you learn the song in the context of the show.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, concerts aside, obviously things like when you have the Sondheim birthday celebrations, that is, we all are entering that with the knowledge of the material.
Exactly. We all go in like kind of all silently agreeing like these songs work better in the show, but we're just thrilled to see like this sung by Victoria Clark with a 50-piece orchestra.
Right. But like a 12-year-old out there, like voice recital singing, Nothing's Gonna Harm, Not While I'm Around, like it's a very different song than when you are in Act 2 of Sweeney Todd. Like
100%.
Put on a happy face is put on a happy face no matter who sings it or where it's done, right. Or whether you're watching Bye Bye Birdie or not, so I think that's what makes Sondheim so smart, is that he's so, and you talked about this in one of your episodes, but like,
Kevin's a fan, everybody.
I'm a fan.
Just
I've been listening.
Tossing my
head.
head.
Talked about this idea of like, this idea of like, in this era, especially, like there had to be the radio hit, and Sondheim, fights against that and is like, every song has to work within the context of the show and the script. Otherwise, what's the point of writing it? He doesn't like to write songs just, it's actually interesting in Saturday Night, there are a couple songs that are kind of standalones that don't progress the plot.
Yeah, there are definitely songs in Saturday Night where you can tell when they were writing it, there was this attitude of, we need the song that like Sinatra's gonna cover.
An aeroplane roars across the bay, but I can hear you as clear as day. You said you love me above the sound and stream. With your love, what more do I need?
Point is that yes, after 1960, it's gone, and the song, we have those two songs that sort of pop up. And that's really all we ever hear of Saturday Night. There's a moment where Sondheim's asked at a Q&A. I think it might have been a Q&A for Sweeney Todd at the National in London in like 93, 94, where someone's like, is Saturday Night ever going to get done? And he basically was like, absolutely not. That'll never happen. Because I think by that point, he was just too embarrassed. And he was still kind of in the thick of, I want to write more. I don't want this to like impede my career and have people sort of think less of me. And then what ends up happening is a British company convinces him to let them put it on in like 97, 98. I think it's like at Edinburgh or something like that. They're like, this isn't going to go anywhere. This is just like, so people can see it. It's not going to have any kind of major life. Can we just do it? And he's like, yeah, sure, fine. And they do it. And he sees it. He's like, oh, this was like a little better than I remembered. And then it gets done in Chicago by the Pegasus Players at Truman College, directed by Gary Griffin, which is fun. Yeah.
Was a young Gary Griffin? Was he established?
I guess it was 98, I think. 98, 99.
All right. At the beginning.
So yeah.
Towards the beginning.
Towards the beginning of his career. And then I guess that was enough to sort of draw interest to it for New York, where it gets produced at second stage in the winter of 2000, early of the year 2000. And what's interesting about this, so it's when Saturday Night premieres in New York City. And it was coming the same year as the Carol Burnett version of Putting It Together, which was opening that November. And there was, I don't know if it was a rumor, if it was like kind of unofficially announced, Wise Guys was going to open on Broadway that April, directed by Sam Mendes, after the workshop that they were going to do that December. And it was going to be like the season of Sondheim, and everyone was really excited. And then Putting It Together opened and was like not super well received. And
shocking.
Listen, I love that Putting It Together, understanding that it's not great, but
it's so fun though. It is a fun. Come on,
absolutely.
Carol Burnett, Ruthie Henshaw, John Barrowman,
Bronson Pinchot, and George Hearn. The cast is amazing. I also really love the set. I love how things just like pop out of the stage.
Yes.
Bob Crowley is a great designer. It's one of those things where like half of it works so well, and then the other half is just a little too forced. Yes. And like Sondheim, as we talked about with the concert, like it just out of context, a lot of the songs don't work. However, one of my favorite bits is them doing It's Hot Up Here at the beginning of Act 2. And Ruthie Henshaw's in like a tiny Alice in Wonderland room, and there's a 1 foot tall chair. She goes, this chair is completely out of proportion. It's just so fun. She's great. I love her.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. I mean, and there's some brilliant I am a sucker for new arrangements and medleys, and like I die over the Sondheim on Sondheim recording. And like when I saw that, like that Something's Coming quartet version, like I die for stuff. So Putting It Together to me is like my guilty pleasure as far as like the new arrangements. And
I don't think anything from Saturday Night is in Putting It Together, interestingly enough.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, maybe So Many People, maybe, but that would be the only one that I can think of. A lot of Dick Tracy though. Anywho, so Putting It Together is not super well received. Wise Guys bombs in its workshop and gets scraped for Broadway. And then Saturday Night opens, and it's kind of, we'll get into a bit more of this with Alexi, but it's sort of tepidly received. Everyone's sort of like, it's really nice to finally see it, but that's sort of it. And there was still sort of pressure for it to transfer because the 2000 Tonys was looking kind of grim for new musicals. And they were like, if this transfers, Sondheim will win score. Like, it's in the bag. And
what was that season? Was that Wild Party year?
That was the Wild Party year, and Aida and Swing. That was the big
Yeah.
things that year were Contact was best musical and the big
Right. That was the
musical
year
hit.
Contact won.
Yeah.
Shockingly.
Which if I were to vote, I would vote for Wild Party. But if I were being a sort of stodgy, I don't like, musicals that have sexual assault in them, I would go with Contact over The Dead and over Swing.
I also think that if Lacusa's Wild Party hadn't made it to Broadway first and Lippa's had, I actually think Lippa's Wild Party would have won a lot of awards too. I think it was. We don't need to get into the Wild Party of it all. That's a whole other episode. But
yeah, we can't.
Yes, it's more palatable. It's more commercial.
Yes. Whether it would have won a lot is, I think that, truly we'll never know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because if you look at that Tony Awards, it's so clear that the nominating committee nominated for Aida as little as possible, knowing that if it got musical, it would win musical. And the Tonys were like, we're kind of done with Disney right now. We really don't want to give them more than we can. And it shows because think of like the 5 Tonys it's nominated for, maybe the 4, it wins like 75% of its Tony nominations. They win actress, score, lighting, and scenery. So I guess 4 out of 5. So they were like, yeah, if the Tony committee, if the Tony voters had their way, they were like, yeah, we would have voted for Aida. That's the musical. But people were like, please, Saturday Night transfer. It's the newest Sondheim musical, quote unquote, and like you'll get nominated, you could even win score, and it just doesn't happen, and it kind of just quietly goes away. But we'll go more into that in a second. So Kevin, we've stalled long enough. What the fuck is Saturday Night fucking about?
So it's basically about a group of friends that live in Flatbush, Brooklyn. The main character of the friends being Gene, who is an assistant on Wall Street and dreams of striking it rich and moving up in society and going to parties at the plaza. And he comes up with this scheme to he gets wind from a young guy who works at, I think it's Merrill Lynch, who tells him, oh, this stock of market, what's it called? Merchant Chem?
Yeah, Merchant Chem
is gonna like hit big. And so you want to get in early. So he and his buddies pool all their money and they basically go in on the stock. And of course, hijinks ensue. And Gene meets a young woman named Helen, who is claiming she's Helene, and is a Southern debutante, and they meet, and then somehow they end up at this apartment on Park Avenue. Like it's like, and he puts a down payment on the apartment which is the money that's supposed to get invested in this stock, and then to pay for the stock that he has to purchase, he is babysitting his cousin who has the same name's car as him, and he loans the car and then has to end up selling the car to get the money. It's like, it's very 1920s hijinks. And basically, spoiler alert, he uses the money, he invests, the stock does not do what it's supposed to. They lose the money. Now or does he ever end up actually investing it?
He does. Yeah. He does. What ends up happening, so I'm like reading the synopsis, I'm like reading a couple of scenes, I'm like, the fuck is this second act? There's like even because the stock starts to like bomb pretty soon into act 2, or maybe it's the end of act 1. Plus he like proposes to Helen and all this stuff.
Yes, act 1 ends with the proposal.
He like has a suicide attempt pretty early on in act 2 because Helen has a gun in her purse, but it ends up being a water gun.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's supposed to be funny, but I'm like, that's not very funny.
Well, what happens is what you learn is at the top of act 2. So basically, he invests and the stock does poorly. And now Gene owes all this money. He has this apartment he just rented. He has this car he has to get back. And now he has to pay back all his buddies the money. And what happens is there's a phone call that happens at the top of act 2 that Helen, because the whole show kind of takes place around Gene's house. It's on the front porch of the house. And there's a lot going on, and the phone rings and Helen answers it. I think Gene's hiding out from the cops because they were trying to get him because of the car. The cousin comes back and runs the car.
To add to fucking confusion, guys.
I'm just like trying to explain it.
You think we're padding this episode? Let me tell you about what the Epsteins and Sondheim did to pad this fucking story. He tells the cops that the car was stolen. No, sorry. He tells his cousin the car was stolen to like get out of trouble with having sold it. So then the cousin reports the car stolen to the cops. And I guess like because he and his cousin share the same name, there's like a lot of mix-ups about like which Gene is who.
Yes.
And
they arrest the wrong Gene. They arrest the cousin.
Yeah.
Trying to get to Gene, the main character.
Yes. And then by the end, what ends up happening is they lose the money on the stock, but the apartment that he put the down payment on, the people who owned the apartment decided they weren't going to sell. So he gets the down payment back plus like extra somehow, which there's like he maybe interest. I don't know. Like
I think Helen negotiates that. I think
Helen
she
negotiates
says to the broker,
it, yes.
Well, you have to pay interest.
Yes. Helen negotiates it. So she, proves her, worth in staying in the musical for plot's sake. And he gets the money back and he's like gonna finally go to jail because he's gonna turn himself in. But then the cops are like, no, it's okay, Gene. So everybody gets their money back plus like a little bit of profit anyway. And then Gene decides he doesn't want the fancy life. He's happy with just like where he's at, which him and Helen then sing, What More Do I Need? And there's no place like home. Curtain down. Everybody goes
there we go. And there's also a whole plot point about Helen's dad owns a chicken farm. And so she's like, the perfect life is just to go live on the chicken farm or work on the chicken farm. So then I guess they decide he's going to go live on the chicken farm. But the gun part comes from after Helen already knows that they're going to get the money back because she takes the phone call. They end up going out. I think Gene's like, well, we have this money. We might as well spend it. Like, who cares if we lose more? And he gets very drunk and upset. And that's when Helen's like, well, why don't you just take this gun? Knowing A, he's not going to actually hurt himself, and B, that everything's going to work out right. But she's trying to like, quote, teach him a lesson. So
I didn't find it very funny myself, but maybe that's just me. I don't know.
It's very dark. It's very like it's very dark.
Yes, and I like dark comedy. I don't know. I've come to learn I'm a basic bitch. I think I'm esoteric and I think I have this very high cultured taste, but I've come to find out with this Sondheim series that all my favorite Sondheim stuff in his shows is like the basic stuff. Like Pacific Overtures, I love Welcome to Kanagawa, and I love Chrysanthemum Tea, but I only like the end of poems when it starts to sound like a musical.
Yes.
But that's because I'm a basic bitch. Yeah, so that's the plot of Saturday Night, guys. Are you is your palate now whet, everyone, for wanting to see a full-blown production of this show?
I mean, here's what I think. I think what this show needs clearly is somebody needs to come in and revise the book. And if you take it more into like the Drowsy Chaperone style of slapstick, heightened hijinks, and everything's overblown, there's a chance that we could salvage this.
The score also kind of needs to get rearranged because the score, and I have to emphasize again, I've now listened to this score all the way through maybe 8 times in the last 48 hours, like start to finish. Like I just kept going back to front all the time. This score is not super exciting musically speaking. Like it doesn't have a lot of fizzle, a lot of bubbles, like a lot of energy to it. It's a very kind of smooth jazz kind of score. It's very suave. And for a musical that has a lot of plot points to it, that's supposed to kind of be madcap, it doesn't have that like Mac Sennett hijinksy energy to it, except for maybe the Act 1 finale. Everything else is a little more like
yeah, it's simple and charming, but like very of that the sound of the time, which is easy in a way, like easy listening. So I was thinking that one of the now, did you listen to what did you listen to more, the London world premiere recording or the second stage recording?
The second stage recording is the one I've listened to more.
Yeah, because that for me, I mean, comparing the two, like the second stage at least has energy behind it. That London recording
and a full orchestra.
I mean, yeah, the tempos in that London recording, I was like, oh my gosh, let's move this along, people. But the I was listening on, like I did the same thing as you, where I kind of listened to it a few times, and one of the times listening to it, that opening number of Saturday Night, which is so cute and simple, but I was like, it needs like an injection of adrenaline. Like these boys it's Saturday night. They're horny. They want to go out. They want to be with the girls. And they're kind of just singing this like, soft shoey type number. Like this show, and actually in one of the reprises, they pick up the tempo and it kind of has this energy as the stakes of the show are going up. And that's where I was like, this is where we need to start and go up from there. So, but yeah, I agree. There's just kind of like an ease to it all.
And it's very pleasant, the opening number, but again, because it's not an opening that excites the audience. It's melodically really pretty. You know what it kind of is? It's sort of showing the kind of languid energy of when you're alone at home and like you're not sure what to do. It's the whole song has the energy of what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Which is very relatable.
Exactly.
And I've talked about this on the pod before. Sondheim talks about what he learns from Jerome Robbins is like the difference between like what the show needs and what is realistic for the characters. And it's important to remember he wrote this before he met Jerome Robbins. So like in his mind, he's probably like, realistically speaking, these guys wouldn't like really be hopped up on energy and be like, oh, what are we going to do? They're like, I don't know, this stuff. But if Jerome Robbins had come in, he'd be like, Steve, peppier. Give me this is what the show needs.
Here's a revival of Ben-Hur, goes in at 9:15 at the Cushman. So when I got my mind on sex, who gives a damn for Francis X. Bushman? The moon's like an overloaded Moxie sign. It shines at you friendly and bright. I got my buddies and my buddies are fine, but not on a Saturday night.
Even from this score alone, you already see the talent he has for lyric writing, which, I mean, he talks about it all the time. Like, he always thought of himself as a composer and like a lyricist second, but the natural talent he has for lyric writing. And then on top of that, he's so much more critical of lyric writers than he is of composers. So part of me wonders if he's like kind of leaned into that now, but you hear it with Saturday Night, like his talent for lyrics, just like the cleverness of the wordplay is already so apparent. It's like, you can't deny it.
Yeah. And even reading the annotations in Finishing the Hat, when he talks about with these lyrics, the sins of lyric writing that he commits, it's brilliant. And it also is like, you want to be like, Steve, you're being so hard on yourself. Like, these lyrics are so funny and clever and smart, and they're so much better than what, so much is out there. Like, you were 23, let it go, but you're right. He's so critical and so, and there is something to be said for his, as a composer lyricist, his dedication to the lyric, at least in my opinion, first, which is not always, happens with composer lyricists. And especially like a lot of, I think what contemporary musical theater shows suffer from is a lack of the score is superior to the lyrics within it. So it feels like somebody wrote this beautiful song and then somebody kind of came in and shoehorned lyrics in a way. Like contemporary shows don't have the poeticism necessarily all the time. And
the restraint, especially with music. Yeah. Well, so I talked about this with Sunset Boulevard because Matt Lisey came on to talk about that. And then I kind of dragged the show for a while just because, and it comes from a purely objective standpoint. If people like the show, I have no judgment on them whatsoever. And like, there are things about the show that are effective for sure, because the music is very grand and sweepy, but it is a show where the music has such an emphasis and such a priority in the show, where you think about a song like With One Look or As If We Never Said Goodbye, which are these 4-minute songs that accomplish, dramatically speaking, nothing. They don't tell you anything new about Norma or anything about the situation that couldn't be done in literally a verse.
Right.
And that said, people still really enjoy it, but it's one of those things that always bug me. And what I appreciate about Sondheim with his songs, and you see it with this, is that it's already so important to him and you see it with Saturday Night, that the lyrics convey new depth to a character or progress something with the story moving forward, or like give you a new attitude. Like, something new has to be revealed, whether it's story or character or theme,
Yeah, and I mean, even with his song like "Love's a Bond," that is just like the voice on the radio, right? Or
Yeah.
the singer at the lounge or whatever. Like, even those lyrics are smart and tie into the theme of the show, this idea of this Wall Street, and make very clever, period appropriate jokes. And like even when he's writing this, oh, this is just a bandstand song.
Mhm.
It's smart. It's smart writing.
You know what song has uh so the song that I was listening to that really kind of grew on me over each listen is the song Isn't It, which is
Yes.
sung by
Yes.
Helene Helen. It's her intro song. So to give you an idea, fellow listeners, what's happening, Gene goes to the plaza. Do we remember why he's going to the plaza? Does he have any reason other than the fact that he just wants to be fancy?
It's what he does on Saturday nights. He just goes up and tries to get into these parties.
Yeah. That's like Gene's whole spiel, is that he's trying to become like part of the elite, and that's sort of his I Want song, is this song called Class. And again, speaking of a song with no real motor behind it, the music in Class is like just very smooth jazz or swung music.
It ain't no Wizard and I.
It ain't no Wizard and I. It ain't no In My Own Little Corner with that little chime. You know what I mean?
Yes.
That triangle.
Yes. In My Own Little Corner. Anyone out there listening, if you ever sing In My Own Little Corner, it is an up tempo. You move that thing.
You move that fucking
She
thing.
is. It's a daydream, but she has a strong one, and you better move that tempo. I always tell people, push it, push it, push it.
Yeah. Well, like basically the way that I view sort of ballads is like you have to earn a ballad, and it's really hard to make a ballad interesting out of context because they're meant to be a moment of reflection in a show, right? So when you do a ballad in a concert or in a class, it just sort of feels a little indulgent. So you need to kind of always have your mind on that and how to, engage the audience when, ballads are sort of by definition for the singer, right?
Yeah.
So it's not to say that Class is a ballad. It's not, but it feels a bit like a ballad.
This is why a room is a flat. You don't say tie, you call it cravat. Say you drink from a tumbler instead of a glass. That's the mark of someone who has what I call class.
But isn't it? What I like about Isn't It? So Gene goes to the plaza and he meets Helene. Neither one of them can get in. And so they decide that they're going to dance together sort of in the lobby of the plaza to the music that's playing inside. And she sings this song, Isn't It? And the lyrics are like, this is nice, isn't it? I mean the music. This is nice, isn't it? I mean the band, which I love because it's, first of all, it's adorable. It's very cute, very charming. But it's also super relatable where it's like you have instant chemistry with someone and you haven't, it's very If I Loved You, in the like, I'm not going to say anything because I want you to say it, but I am going to leave you some breadcrumbs so you can say it first. So it's like they immediately have this attraction to each other. It's very clear. And it's clear that she's aware of it. She's obviously like much more self-aware than Gene is. And when they're dancing and she sings this song, it's her way of being like, oh, this is nice what we're doing. I mean, dancing. Yeah. It's like,
it's very like, I mean, it's dated in a way, but it's very like, I want to make the first move, but I can't. And so I'm trying, hello,
mm-hmm.
Can you make the first move? Hello?
Well, that's sort of part of what Baby It's Cold Outside is actually about, which people never realize. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Because that song is supposed to be a commentary on how women are not allowed to be openly sexual in the 40s and 50s. And so it's her trying to be like, oh, I can't do it, but like, pester me a little more and maybe I'll say yes. Like, it's like, oh, how can, anyway, point is, yes. I'm using that to connect it to this song because of the era in which the song takes place, and as well as the era in which it was written. Women are not overtly sexual, so they have to kind of let men make the first move. But on top of that, just in terms of like a purely coy kind of way that I think we also can relate to, where it's like if you meet somebody and it's not on the grounds of a date, so it's not like a Tinder date, it's something like you meet at a party or whatever, and you don't want to necessarily say, I think you're cute, let's go out sometime. It's like, Oh, you like this too? Oh, that's interesting. Like you do the slight little touch on the arm, and it's all supposed to just sort of feel accidental, so they can sort of realize how you feel without you ever having to say it. And I just think it's very rarely do I ever think of a Sondheim song as adorable. This is one of the songs that I think is adorable.
This is nice, isn't it? I mean the music. This is nice, isn't it? I mean the band. Don't you think we make natural partners? I mean like food and drink, or supply and demand.
I want to bring up this song because Sondheim uses other songs as an example, which is sort of a list song. Do you know what song I'm about to talk about?
A list song. Oh, Exhibit A.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Sondheim usually hates list songs, and the song he always references is 100 Easy Ways to Lose a Man from Wonderful Town, where Rosalind Russell's singing and she gets through the first one, then she says first two, and she goes 98 ways to go, which usually gets a huge laugh. But Sondheim said when he saw it, his mind went, "Oh God, we've got 98 more to get through."
Exactly.
And he said the same thing about a chorus line. He said, which he did say with the chorus line, I sat there and I went, "Oh God, we have to go through everybody's story down the line." But then he also said that Michael Bennett was sort of ahead of him on that, and then was able to sort of do the montage sequence and other stuff. So you're never actually going right down the line. Right. So it was Michael Bennett's way of being like, "I see you, Steve. I see what you're thinking." And no, that's not what's going to happen. But Exhibit A is kind of that song.
It's exactly that song.
I was trying to be kind, but yes, it's exactly that song.
I'll admit this is, and I think Chris Fitzgerald on the recording is brilliant, and Chris Fitzgerald himself is brilliant. But this one is, I listened to it a couple times, but it became a skip, and I thought the same thing. My mind went to Sondheim talking about 100 Easy Ways to Lose a Guy. Like when we start and we get through Exhibit A, and then there's a whole verse. And then we get to Exhibit B, and there's a whole verse. And by the time we get to C, I'm like, there is no way we are sitting through 26 verses of the song. Please tell me no.
Yeah. But we go pretty fucking far.
We go all the way up to H.
H, yes. Also, I was gonna say Christopher Fitzgerald does about as good a job with this as anyone could. Because he is
tough.
Yeah, he is Christopher Fitzgerald. He is an amazing comedian, like one of the best we have right now. And he does about as good a job with this as he possibly could. But it's tough. It's long. It doesn't have any major arc. There's also a verse that's a little date rapey that I don't love.
Yeah.
The one about hiding the keys in your pocket so she can't get out. It's like, that's not cute.
Yeah. It's like, it's very, you could see like in 1954, like, oh, this is cute. This 19 or 16-year-old, the character 16, like thinking about this, but it's like, come on. But yeah, I mean, the only payoff for me of this whole song, it's after we make it all the way to H, is the final line where he goes back in and goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And then the next line is I rest my case. Like that punchline to me is like, okay, I get why we had to go up to H to get that punchline, but still it's very chorus line. It's very, very Wonderful Town. It's very like, wow, we are settled in because we got 26 verses to go through in theory.
Exactly. I think that there could have been a way for Sondheim to get to H and not have it be so verse, chorus, verse, chorus, verse, chorus. Find a way to condense it. Maybe do 2 cases in a verse. I don't know. Yeah. Notes. I've got notes for you, Steve.
Yeah, we'll send those over to Steve.
Music, if it's slow and smooth, hath charms to soothe the savage breast. Get her stretched out and let rhythm do the rest. That fascinating rhythm. Exhibit D. A cushion.
Were there any songs you wanted to bring up immediately? We will get into What More Do I Need, although we have already kind of talked about it.
Well, I mean, we've touched on it, most of them, but the other one that I think stands out as far as just the early seedlings of a young Steve is, I love that we're just calling him Steve like we know him. Like I mean,
we could also just call him Daddy.
Daddy. but is in the movies, which is, I'd be interested to do like a really true dramaturgical deep dive of material of the shows written at the time, because in the movies is this standalone scene that is, you know, a Sondheim group number, a la A Weekend in the Country, you
Very
know,
much.
a la, I mean, the whole prologue of Into the Woods, you know, like it's just this. And I would be interested to see if it's not the first, it must be one of the early versions where an entire scene is this musical number.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the first in this style. I think Most Happy Fella comes out a year or two later, but that's more of an opera, or operetta, I should say. It's this, and then there's another one, and it's not in Finishing the Habit. You hear it on the recording, which is the what is it called? Like Nice to Meet Ya. It's when Mildred first appears, and they do like, it's what could just be a 1-page scene is a 2-minute musical dialogue.
Delighted, I'm sure.
Delighted, I'm sure. That's it. Yeah. Where it's just, you know, everyone's being introduced to Mildred, and all it's really established in the song is like Mildred's excited to meet all these boys who she's kind of collectively going on a date with, and all the boys kind of figuring out like how much money they have, what they're going to spend money on, who actually has Mildred as the date, and all this other stuff. And then I do love, it's a very prescient line, which is when Mildred introduces herself to Bobby Christopher Fitzgerald, who, as we learn, isn't going to the movies with them because he has a date coming to the house to meet him. All Mildred says is like, "Nice to meet you," and Bobby's like, "Hey, I have a date tonight." And it's like,
it's very, it's cute.
Yeah, and like, it's one of those things that no one, I don't think, at that time was ever writing social interactions that way between men and women, of and like commenting on it, of the whole like the woman saying like, "Oh, it's nice to meet you," and the guy being like, "Hey, calm down, lady. I got a girlfriend. Like, calm down."
Yes.
Or she's like, "Oh yeah, my gentleman acquaintance." Like, "Hey, calm down, lady. I'm just saying hi."
Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah, I like that he does that, because I think that's, if anything, that's probably the legacy of Saturday Night.
It's a very, you know, like the whole show, it's charming. It's these young.
Yeah. It's when I say like that the score is not something that I really love, I'm not saying that like there's no merit to it. It's more like the songs that stick out for me, but there are just as many songs that I kind of forget about as soon as it's over.
Yes.
In the movies is weirdly one of those songs for me, not because I do think the lyrics are really clever, and I like the whole concept of this sort of musicalization of a scene where it's, you know, you have the two girls looking at all the movie posters, and the boys are trying to pulling their money together and whatnot. But like, it, for a song that goes on this long, it's a 5-minute song, and to have it encompass so much, it doesn't really build to a proper ending. And I wonder, does it go into dialogue afterwards? Because on the recording,
it's just ends. Its own scene.
Okay, because on the recording, it just kind of ends, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, I'd be interested to see like how they staged it at second stage, or you know, like what you know, like what the transition was, but it really it kind of is a standalone. Let's see, where does it go into? Yeah, there's a transition, and then we're back on the porch.
Yeah.
So
I think like 80% of the show takes place on Jean's porch, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you have little things that take place, like, you know, one scene at the plaza, one scene at the movies, one scene at that empty apartment that you know, where Jean decides she's going to put a down payment on.
Yeah.
Which,
well, the second stage production, I mean, the you know, if you've ever been to second stage, it's not a huge stage. And basically what they did is the set was the front porch with the steps and the front of the house, and then they would the front of the house was a wall that would fly, and then when they were in other scenes, they were kind of on the platform. So they were it is so much on the porch that the porch was kind of a unit set.
Yeah. Sondheim talks about how he feels like, in retrospect, Saturday Night was sort of the first chamber musical before that was ever really a thing, or at least it would have been if it was ever produced. And he's right. It's like, it's a relatively small musical, and there's no like big ensemble. Everybody has a name. Everyone has a narrative, so to speak. And I don't know. Part of me was wondering, like, how the show would have actually been received had it actually opened that season, or even the following couple of seasons where it might have happened again. And we will get into that as we talk about sort of the legacy. We talked about in the movies, we talked about what more do I need much earlier. Have we talked about there's the song I Remember That, and I just bring it up because you made a reference to it earlier, and I want people to know what you were referencing so they get the joke.
Yes, this is one of my faves.
It's a cute song. I love In Finishing the Hat. So for most of Sondheim's notes in Finishing the Hat for this are mostly just him being like, I wrote this lyric and I hate it. This lyric has a problem. This lyric has a problem. Like,
yeah.
Talk about more stuff. But I remember that. So the premise is there's a married couple in the show. Like they're the oldest of the group of characters, which means like they're probably 20, you know?
Yes. This is the Andrea Burns and Clark Thorell role.
Yes. And they have a song called I Remember That where they talk about their first date. And the whole joke is like he goes on for the first half and he sings how the date went. And then she sings the second half where she basically corrects him on everything. But
yes.
What makes it cute is at the end they're like, we might not remember everything the same, but what we do remember is we both fell in love that night. And that's
it's
all
so
that matters.
Sweet.
It's very sweet. And what I love about it is that in Finishing the Hat, Sondheim uses it as a moment to shade Alan J. Lerner, who he does not really care for as a lyricist, because he's like, some of you listening to this song might be thinking, this is giving me very Gigi, I Remember It Well vibes, which is fair, but just know that I wrote this 5 years before Gigi. So sorry about it. And like Gigi came out in 59 and I wrote this in 54. So sorry about it. And it's very shady and petty and I love it.
Yes, it is. It is very funny. And I had that same thought the first time I heard it, but I think it's very similar to I Remember It Well, but it's fun to have kind of the young take on it, the young version of it. And also, I mean, just the end of it, the one that gets me, and that's where there's so many moments in the show that just touch to like the inner romantic in me, which only comes out to play like every once in a very great while. But when, it's cute because Celeste, Hank sets up his whole like how he remembers it, and Celeste then is like, well, it's not exactly how it was, and you weren't as smooth and debonair as you remember. And then what's brilliant is in his verse, Hank says, for I'd fallen in love with you, for I'd fallen in love with you. And Celeste then counters all of that and it ends with, but I'd fallen in love with you. And I think that's so sweet. That is a very, to me, there's something so truthful in, despite all of that, I still managed to fall in love with you. And now here we are all these years later and I'm in love with you even more. It's very, If I Loved You, Fiddler on the Roof.
Do You Love Me?
You Love Me. It's very
yes. Well, so the different, as you said, the difference between this and I Remember It Well is I remember that is two lovers sort of at the beginning of their time together. It's sweet that they kind of look back on their first date and it's like, oh, we're old and wiser now. It's like they probably have been married for like 6 months, something like that.
Very brief.
Yeah, and in their mind, they're like, oh, we're the mature ones. But there's a wistfulness about I Remember It Well, which comes from the fact that these are two characters who are much older and haven't seen each other in years. And it's much more friendly. It's people, who have a history and have had love and hate with each other, but they're at a point now in their lives where all that doesn't really matter anymore. And they talk about it in a much more sort of conversational, jovial way. And this is much more just romantic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I like both for very different reasons.
Yes. It's very, I remember that is they're still in the relationship. They're still in love. It's about the promise of what's to come. And I Remember It Well is they're not in the relationship. They didn't end up together. And it's kind of the idea of what could have been in a way. And I think it would be really fun to put the two songs together in some sort of show and have like, what comes to mind, I mean, they're in my heads because we were talking about Sondheim on Sondheim, but having the like, Barbara Cook, Norm Lewis of it all saying, I Remember It Well to the, Leslie Kritzer, who else was in that? Younger lovers.
Yeah. Kyle. Who was the other one? Was it Ewan Morton is the other one or no?
Yes, Ewan Morton. Thank you.
Yeah, it was, I will say, while I remember that warms my heart, there's something a little like very softly heartbreaking at the end of I Remember It Well. Right. Did I say I Remember It Well twice? I meant I remember that. I find to be so charming. But there's something sweetly heartbreaking, and I remember it well at the end when he can't remember anything about how they met and their time together. And he says, "Have I gotten old?" And she says, "Oh no, not you." And it just makes my heart shatter into a million pieces.
I know.
Especially the way that Hermione Gingold says it. I'm like, oh, fuck me up.
I know. And it was Victoria Clark in the revival, right?
It was indeed.
Yeah. And who was the guy?
Howard McGillen.
Oh, right.
I was at opening night of that show.
Oh, right. I love that. I mean, I love,
You love that I was at opening night.
I love that for you. It's a good luck.
I love that journey for you, babe.
I mean, that we won't get into that, but the Victoria Clark and Dee Hoty of it all. I mean, come on. The fact that we have lived to see Dee Hoty and Victoria Clark together on a Broadway stage is how blessed we are.
I met Dee Hoty, and when I told her I was at opening night of Gigi, she went, beautiful costumes. Very Aretha Franklin. We love it. We stand a legend.
Yes.
Any other songs you want to bring up? Have we talked about so many people that much?
We haven't, but we have to because I put it in my wedding and it means so much to me.
I'm so fucking sick and tired of hearing how you're married, Kevin, how you have a husband, you had a wedding.
I know.
I find it very homophobic, and you're attacking me and my life.
I know.
So,
I know. Gay rights. What can I say?
I'm going to eat a block of cheese after this, and I can't digest cheese. So you led me to this.
How's that going for you?
So many people in the world don't know what they've missed. They'd never believe such joy could exist. And if they tell us it's a thing we'll outgrow, they're jealous as they can be.
To me, it's the most beautiful song he's ever written. It is. I love the melody. I love the sentiment behind it. I think the opening verse is, it makes its point but it's once you get into, out of the whole, I thought the man would be rich and have this castle and I'll settle for you, and you get into so many people in the world. It just this idea of there's, all these people in the world. And at some point you find by a bunch of, atoms bouncing around, you find like the person that you want to spend the rest of your life with in theory. It's Broadway at its most romantic. And I fall for it. We for the wedding, we did this. My wedding ceremony was an hour long and was basically a Broadway concert. And we paired this with My Romance. And so that was kind of the mashup, if you will.
I love that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Bill vibes to this song, which I really like.
Ooh, I've never thought of that.
I don't think it's intentional, and I don't think Sondheim ever really thought of it.
Yeah.
But especially with the opening
verse,
yeah.
I mean, it's not nearly as dark as Bill, but yes.
Well, Bill in context of Showboat is devastating. But on its own, Bill is a really beautiful song.
Have you ever heard the story of Audra McDonald singing that song?
To Bill Cosby, yes.
Yeah, which now in hindsight is like lols, but also like the thought of she was at this tribute to Bill Cosby and she chose My Bill, and as she's singing it, she's realizing what she's saying about this man, which now is like, maybe you were right, girl.
Yeah. We look back at that now, we're like, work, bitch. You sing the song that tells him that he's not like any of the good people in the world.
Yeah.
But at the time, she was like, it was like, ooh, this cringy story where I messed up. Yes. But that's just the beauty of Audra, is that she can have the cringy story, and then 10 years later, it becomes a moment of triumph.
I mean, everything Audra ever does is a moment of triumph. So it's fitting that it just took 10 years for us to realize that was one of those moments.
That bitch collapsed in the middle of her final callback, and she still booked the job.
I love that story.
Nothing that woman does is ever a fail.
I love that. I saw her very first performance back from 110 after she had to take that time off because her father passed. And I sat in the front row. It was the most emotional performance I've ever seen. I was obsessed.
I loved her in that show. I had a professor at school who really didn't like her, but also didn't like, and this was the moment in college when I was like, this is the one when I was in college where I was like, oh, you're like, we're not going to get along the rest of my time here.
Yeah.
Because this was like the professor that was like the professor of all professors. He was the one who was like going to teach us how to be actors in theater and like be singing actors. And and for like the first year and a half, he was also my advisor. And like for the first year and a half, I'm like, okay, fine. Like you've got things to say. I understand it. And a lot of people at that school were very much like drinking the Kool-Aid of him. And then I remember it was sophomore year. No, yeah, it was end of sophomore year. And he's going through like certain actors in theater that he thought were like good singing actors and those who he thought weren't. And for him, like the ultimate was Bernadette Peters. And at the time I was like, yeah, no, sure. Makes sense. She's Bernadette. And he's like, yeah, you know, Audra McDonald, Kristen Chenoweth, Sutton Foster, they're all about the voice. And I sat there and in my brain, I said, oh, the next 2 years of my time here with you are going to be very unpleasant. And I was like, I'm going to fight this man to the end of my time till I get that degree. And I did.
So offended. I'm offended. I'm offended for them. Also, like the mansplaining of it all about these women, like, oh my gosh, my head would explode.
Oh, I sat there. I kept a cool head. To be fair, he directed a production of Into the Woods that same year. That was the most boring thing I ever saw.
So I
was like, yeah, there you go. The whole thing was brightly lit. There were 2 trees. We called it Into the Desert, and there were no stakes, no emotions whatsoever. Everything was very subdued, like it was filmed for television. And I was like, how dare you? We are in a 1,200 seat theater, and there's a 90-foot giant, quote unquote, offstage, and everyone is talking like they're in the living room. Fuck you.
Oh my God.
That's the man who said that Sutton Foster and Audra were all about the voice. So
I am appalled.
Oh no, yes, you and me both. And as I said, that was the moment where I went, oh, I'm going to like listen to everything you say with a handful of salt.
Yeah, and just the whole container.
Whereas like other people were like, oh, I'm taking it all in and like maybe I'll find 1 or 2 things that I don't like. I'm like, I'm rejecting all of it. And maybe there's 1 or 2 things you say that I'll think is okay. Like,
I also just like question a professor of musical theater shaping the young minds of like the future of the industry, bad mouthing luminaries of the industry. Like we, you know, it's like these people, whether or not they're your taste is fine, but they have paved the way for the rest of us and have, especially those 3 women have transformed how we view what is possible in theater and on Broadway. And
it was they were very pointed examples. Well, and on top of all of that, it's important to like, again, people can be not to your taste, but it is your responsibility as an educator, especially for theater, where you're trying to train people to get into the industry, of saying like, hey, you know, look at the people who are successful. Like I was working on a project with someone, and this person wanted the thing to be a love letter to New York City with his music. That's all like jazzy, you know, music, not the best kind of jazzy music, but still jazzy music. And I say to the man, I say, okay, love letter to a city, blah, blah, like, have you seen La La Land? And he goes, yes. And I hated it. And I go, whether you hated it is not important. It's an endeavor about a metropolis in modern day using the same style of music you're trying to use, and it made $500 million. So you have to look at what made it click with people. And that same attitude has to be applied to professors, where they're like, listen, you can love Audra. I don't personally, but it is my job to show you her and say like, this is someone who's working all the time. Why is that? Like, right. At least from a professional perspective of this is someone who is like getting it done. That is like what the standard is right now.
Right.
Just on a purely like go get jobs kind of level. Everything else is up for debate for sure. But it almost was like this person went into my brain, picked 3 of my absolute favorites and said no. And rather than me crushed about it, my immediate 20-year-old thought was, oh, you're garbage.
Thank God for you for that. It just, I mean, you know, we don't have to harp on it, but the Audra of it all is
I would love to harp on it, please.
The Audra of it all is the funniest to me because Audra has transcended every medium possible and has made a career out of not only Broadway musicals, but has won Tony Awards for straight plays and has been on television shows and in movies where there is not a vocal in sight. You know, like there is no denying that this is I would consider Audra, even with her opera degree, to be an actress first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I'm still holding out hope that we're going to get an Audra McDonald Deborah Rose Prada. I just think that would be spectacular.
I want to see Audra be funny again. She's so funny.
Here's what we need to do with Devil Wears Prada, and I'm not involved with it, sadly. So I have no dice in this game. But I want Devil Wears Prada on Broadway to do something where they get like every possible woman who can play that role and rotate them out like every 6 months. And so and not even treat it like a replacement. Like, because it's the list of who should play that role is pages long, and I'll be heartbroken to not see all of them, like starting with her.
Well, I want to know exactly what they're doing with that musical because, this is very Sondheim-y to discuss because I talked about it with Do I Hear a Waltz, and we'll talk about it with other stuff too. Miranda's a character to me that I'm not entirely sure if I want her sung, because I think a lot of her power comes from what she withholds and keeps a mystery. So it's a challenge for the writers of that musical to do, to make her sing and not give away any of that power. So I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm saying it's an interesting hurdle to overcome. So I'm interested to see how they go about it.
I agree. I actually also think they're in good hands. I think Elton John is very good about writing powerful women. I mean, look at Aida, right?
And Shayna Taub is
a lyricist. There's nobody more perfect in this young, and in a way they're dynamic. Even though it would be interesting to have a female composer write that show, but even the dynamic between Elton and Shayna, the older generation and the younger generation, very much parallels Miranda and I want to call her Andy, but Andy. Yeah. And I think it's fascinating. I think, where my brain goes, and I've been talking about this a lot with that show, is in everything that's going on. And we'll talk about this when we get to Dreamcast of this show. But I'm dying for them to cast 2 women of color in those roles, because I think it would be fascinating to have part of the story become this older woman of color who's risen to power and overcome all of the BS and misogyny and systemic racism to get where she is, then be so mean to this younger woman, and you find out it's because she is actually doing everything in her power to help this younger woman succeed. Like, you have to be careful with the ethnicities of those characters and their dynamics. But I would be gagged to see 2 like strong women of color. Can you tell I've thought about this show a lot? I'm very excited for it.
Well, I love that. There can be almost an underlying level of resentment as well, which I think is there even without race, but can be there especially with race, which is like, do you know the shit that I went through to get where I am? And you just think you can get a job because times are different.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I'm actually going to be extra hard on you because of all the things that I went through, that like, not only is it going to make you work harder for it, you're going to be a better professional once I'm through with you.
Yes.
And that's what I love about it. And I think that could absolutely be in there. So yeah, I sign on.
Yeah. I think this is a great, it's like, it's a show that we know and a property we know. And it's 2 very powerful women that were white in the movie. And so it's like, now's the chance to let's see what color conscious casting really looks like and how it plays, like what that really means, and dig in. So, but this isn't a podcast about Devil Wears Prada. I'll come back.
It goddamn should be, because I'm done talking about Saturday Night. Let me fucking tell you. Final thoughts on Saturday Night as a show before we go into legacy and history.
I like I said, I mean, I respond to this show. In shows that I love, I find that I always kind of love the chamber musicals, the early shows, like the Violets, the Man of No Importance.
Sure. Speaking of Sally Murphy,
the Floyd Collins of it all. So I know that what I like in musical theater, there's a lot of that in this show. I think that the score it's very interesting to, like we've talked about, listen to with the knowledge of the career that was to come and the work that was to come. I don't necessarily need a big splashy Broadway revival of this, but I do think there's a world in which it would be fun to see another off-Broadway production. We'll get to that when we talk about dream casting. But and I also think this would be a really fun show to kind of see done if we were doing a Sondheim tribute season somewhere where, it would be fun to bring this into play and not just recycle another Into the Woods, another Company, another Follies, another, like throw this one in there. Why don't we do a season with this and Pacific Overtures and somebody
like what they did at the Kennedy Center.
Yeah. Like let's do some, it's like it would be fun to examine and to allow an audience a chance to watch this show in the context of Sondheim's entire career.
I would like to see this paired with, if we were doing like say like a Sondheim cycle. So like with the Kennedy Center, what they did was they did 3 shows sort of in rotation and then did another 3 shows in rotation. I would like to see this in rotation with Merrily and Roadshow. Merrily because about young people, and Roadshow because it's of the same era that it takes place in, and it's also sort of bookending his career that way. So I think that'd be really interesting to see. I don't know if I want to see like on a double bill with Pacific Overtures. I think that's a little too much of like
a little too out there.
Yeah, it's a little too much like having a cheeseburger and following it up with like ginger, like eating a handful of ginger.
No, I think your idea of Merrily and Roadshow is very smart.
Thank you. Well, some people have called me smart, but
I'm one of those.
Thank you. I say those people are either you or they're drunk. So yeah, the legacy of Saturday Night is hard to kind of really figure out because the show never really came out. And when it did, the Sondheim impact had already kind of happened. And when it was performed, it was done in such a small setting and didn't have a lot of hoopla about it. So there was never really any chance for it to have a major impact. I think the 2 big songs from the show are sort of what carries it over. And it's it's nice to sort of think of it as a retrospective. Like it's nice to, I think you have to pair Saturday Night with literally any other Sondheim show. That's the only way to kind of think about it and to listen to it, is when you like, and it could be Pacific Overtures, it could be Company, it could be Follies, and just pairing it with anything else he's written since then to just sort of see the connections and the differences and how he's grown, and also maybe how he's hardened a bit at the same time, and how he's and he also found his own voice.
Yeah. And it also is kind of, again, like there is a way to, I think, do a standalone off-Broadway production. And I think it would be fascinating to go in and retool the book and keep the score, or even do some new arrangements with the score. And because it never really had this Broadway production, that it is kind of this still working. I mean, I talked to Donald Corrin about it a little bit, about his experience at Second Stage, and he made a good point. He said, the book was unfinished, and then they died. And Steve, through the Second Stage production, was kind of a book babysitter. He didn't want major changes made. He wanted it kind of done as is, and he made some edits here and there. But for that production, he wanted it to kind of be representative of what it was in the 50s. And now that we have that, now what happens if we go back in and re-examine it?
Exactly. Yeah. So the show opened at Second Stage, like I said, in the year 2000. I believe it was, I have the exact date here written down somewhere.
I think it was January, right?
Was it? It was either January or February, because they actually had a very long preview process. Yeah. So it opened February 17th in the year 2000. I think it started previews like January 1st or January 2nd. And did previews for a very long time. Directed and choreographed by Kathleen Marshall. We love to see it. Starring Lauren Ward, Christopher Fitzgerald, Andrea Burns, Natasha Diaz, so many people. It wins the Drama Desk Award for Best Lyrics, so that's nice. Good for Steve.
Yeah, how exciting.
Yeah. It kind of slowly disappears. It's done at Mufti at the York for a hot second, as we talked about before.
Yeah, and talk about that cast too.
Yeah, it was Lindsay Mendez.
Lindsay Mendez was the Andrea Burns role, and
Andrew Keenan Bolger's in it, or wasn't it?
Yes, Ben Finkhauser is opposite Lindsay. And you have maybe Ben was Ben was opposite Lindsay, and Margot Siebert was Helen.
Oh, that's nice. That's a great cast.
Yeah.
That's the thing about this show, is that, like, despite the fact that I don't particularly care for it, the opportunities for casting are endless, because you can cast such personable performers in it. And it's not the most rangy score, so you don't even have to think of like, oh, who's the best singer in the world? You have to think of someone who's a good singing actor,
Yeah. And they got lucky with that. Not lucky, but that Second Stage production. I mean, it was a huge deal at the time. It was very exciting that this basically new Sondheim musical. And so they really, even in talking to both Donald and Tara about it, everyone has very fond memories and looks back on that it's a very special thing for everybody because of what it was. And they were able to get like really good people to do this 2-month off-Broadway run. Of course, always with the hope that it's going to transfer, but but the casting possibilities. I mean, listen, you're talking to a casting director, so like I could make you
I look forward to hearing your casting in a second. Yeah, I think the only person who like had absolutely no belief it was going to go to Broadway was Sondheim himself. Everyone's like, I mean, it's a weak season, it's a Sondheim musical, and I feel like he's sort of going, it's it's fine. It's not as good as you guys probably think it is, but you'll see soon enough. And they sure did. But yeah, it seemed like it was a very pleasant experience. It kind of it doesn't have much of an impact because of its sort of weird timeline. What's interesting to me is, so it was supposed to come out in the 1954-55 season, which is the same season as The Pajama Game, Peter Pan, Plain and Fancy, The Boyfriend, Fanny, Silk Stockings too. And it's that time where musical comedy is kind of shifting a bit. It's becoming a little more sexual. It's becoming a little more highly energized. It's having a style about it. And I think this would be sort of the last season that Saturday Night would have been acceptable in terms of like its style and its sound.
Yeah.
If had it come a year later, I think people have already been going like too old fashioned. And I think that's why it was wise that Sondheim sort of canceled it in 1960, because that season it would have come out with Camelot and Bye Bye Birdie, which like talk about like putting Saturday Night across the street from Bye Bye Birdie. Audiences would be like, the fuck is this show? Let's go see Bye Bye Birdie. You know?
I mean, Bye Bye Birdie was the first rock and roll musical. Like that was a turning point in Broadway. So to have this simple, sweet show would have been
that's sort of the thing is like when you start to see it in the 60s where like Broadway takes its sweet time getting going to like catching up with the rest of the country in terms of music and pop culture. Like the Beatles come to the States, blow up everything, and Broadway then takes like 15 years to try to get back into like the zeitgeist of music. And because like after Bye Bye Birdie, there's not really any other show for the majority of the 60s really until Heron Promises that like get back to that sort of rock pop sound.
I mean,
and even Bye Bye Birdie, like when you think about it now, like it's interesting for us to listen to Bye Bye Birdie now and go like, this is a rock musical because it seems so musical theater-y. But at the time, like it had electric guitar in it. It had much more boppery sounds to it.
Wasn't it the first show to put electric guitar in the pit?
Don't quote me on that because I don't know for sure, but that sounds right.
I think it was, yeah, exactly. I mean, and you're right. It was an experiment that was successful, but then not recreated. For a while.
Yeah. Well, the same thing with West Side Story. Like, this major breakthrough happens and then nobody follows up,
right.
These people come out on stage and they're like, look at what we just did. Who's excited to join us? And everyone's like, we are so proud of you, but we're not joining. And what I will say about Broadway now, in terms of the majority of the writers, is that it does feel like everyone has this energy of trying to create new things and try different styles and subject matter and all that stuff, which I really appreciate, because there was a time, even in the golden age, where like writers were like, we just want to put up a good show, a well-structured show. I don't need to break boundaries. And it took a while for more writers to like try to outdo each other. Like, we're going to be the first show to do this and we're going to be the first show to do that.
Right. You also have more people writing for Broadway these days than, in the golden age, it was kind of the same handful of composers. It's like amazing that could you imagine a major composer having back-to-back shows in back-to-back seasons? Like, it would never happen today.
No, shows aren't written as quickly now. They're not developed as quickly. Gypsy was written in like 4 months. That doesn't happen anymore.
No, I mean, it's gotten too expensive. It's too risky. You got to know what you're bringing in is. So, but I think that we are, and I will be very interested to see what the next 10 years on Broadway looks like, because there's going to be a cultural shift and there's going to be some seismic changes happening because of a year off, and B, or a year and a half off, and just with everything going on, I think we're entering a very exciting and creative time, kind of like we did when we kind of came out of the devastation of the AIDS epidemic, and losing all of those writers, and what, you know, not to be corny, but like Phoenix rose from those ashes, and what was created, you know,
how we rallied.
And I think there's some cool stuff that's gonna happen.
I can't fucking wait, because honestly, like the 80s, which granted some of my favorite things came from that decade, is generally looked at as sort of a wasteland of like Broadway creativity. Like it was not the plethora of exciting shows that it was in the 60s and 70s, and then eventually became in the 90s and early 2000s. And hot take, I was not super thrilled with sort of the last season of Broadway. Granted, a lot of the most interesting stuff was about to come out, and then the world shut down, which pissed me off. But yeah, I was kind of a little disheartened with sort of where Broadway was at. So when it comes back later this year, I am truly, truly excited to see what happens, because I think that all these shifts are for the better, at least for the Broadway community. So I'm very excited.
I also wonder if the whole like structure of the Broadway season is going to change, because I think what we learned last year was, you know, all the shows kind of packed themselves into March and April to get in right under the wire for Tony season, so that they're fresh and hot. And look what happened. 20 shows didn't get to open, 15 shows didn't get to open, you know, like, and some really cool things. I mean, we got Girl from the North Country that just slipped in there, but, you know, no one got to see. And then you have things like Six and Sing Street that were like gonna be these really cool new things that didn't get to open.
Flying Over Sunset too, like these musicals, I'm like, these are such fascinating ideas, and they seem like they might, you know, even if they don't totally work, they still are trying something, and there's gonna be something to them, and that really excited me. So the fact that I didn't get to see any of it devastates me, but I look forward to eventually seeing it.
Yes, exactly.
So wrapping things up with Saturday Night, of which for however long we've recorded, I'm pretty sure about 40% of it has been about Saturday Night, which is honestly fair. That's what it should be.
Yeah.
I think that's all Sondheim would ever want an episode about Saturday Night to be dedicated to it. So let's do our rapid fire questions, and then we're going to call this goddamn day.
Oh gosh.
First question. The Sondheim rhyme. What is your favorite lyric in this show?
Well, it has to be the end of So Many People, which is, and if they tell us it's a thing we'll outgrow, they're jealous as they can be, that with so many people in the world, you love me. I mean, come on. That is gorgeous.
It's gorgeous. And it's also like a sly fuck the haters line, you know?
Yeah.
Next up. God, that's good. Where does this show rank for you in the Sondheim canon?
I would say honestly solid, like middle.
Okay.
You know, it's there are shows that I know less and don't respond to as well. And there's enough redeeming qualities that if there was a production happening in New York, I would go, and I would be excited to go and see it. So we'll put it right around you know, if Into the Woods and Company and Sweeney Todd are my top tier, then my second tier would be like this, Merrily, and what am I forgetting?
A lot.
Yeah.
That's fine. Second tier is honestly higher than I expected. Good on you, Saturday Night. You made Kevin second tier. I Had a Dream cast. Who would you cast in a production of Saturday Night?
I can't believe you're going to ask the casting director this question. My job is to make lists.
Yeah. So it's apropos, fucker.
Yeah. So I have obviously 1 million ideas. The ones that excite me, I think well, first of all, I should say that I think what makes the show really work is to have a very, very young cast. And so I think what you'd want to do is go in and find people fresh out of school that aren't necessarily names yet and established, and use this show in a way to make them stars. But that being said, I think a fresh out of school Carol Lindsay and Kevin Massey would be an adorable Helen and Jean combo. I actually think they could also still this day do Celeste and Hank, which I think would be fun. I also think it would have been fun back in the day to see Kelly O'Hara do Helen. And I think Adam Kaplan would be a very charming Jean.
Oh, Adam.
But what I think, and I had hinted at this, is with the revisal, would be fascinated to see somebody come in and move this show to Harlem in the 1920s and do it with an all black cast. And I think infusing some of that style of music coming out of Harlem in the jazz age and the Harlem Renaissance could be exciting. And then, I think you can do things like Christiane Pitts as Helen, and from the Mean Girls tour, Adante Carter as Jean. I think it would be hysterical to get like Roman Banks and Demarius Copes and those kind of young guys as the friends. I think, a Brittany Johnson or even a Brittany Coleman as one of the, the Natasha Diaz roles. So I think that would be very interesting to see if there's a way, there's a lot of lyrics that would need to be tweaked because so much of it is about Brooklyn. And I have not done my dramaturgical work. I don't know if historically having an all black cast set in Brooklyn in the 20s would make sense. But I think that Harlem Renaissance excitement and this idea, I mean, especially when it adds all these layers of like when Helen says to Jean, like at one point in the show, in a very dark moment, she says, they're talking about somebody and she says, so he got rich. I think they're talking about somebody on Wall Street. She says, so he got rich, so will many others, but you never will. I think to like have a young African American in the early 20s have somebody say that to him, like, would be,
there's a weight to that.
Yeah, it adds stakes and it adds I'm gonna show you. So that's the revisal I want to see.
I like that. It also, by setting it in Harlem during that period, it allows you to then restyle the music to give it some heat, which it currently lacks.
Exactly.
Yes, make it a lot more exciting.
Yeah.
I like that a great deal. That's good. Next up. Because Sondheim tends to always come back stripped down and, simplified off Broadway or John Doyle or Classic Stage Company, whatnot. This section is called It's the Little Things, aka There Won't Be Trumpets. How would you downsize Saturday Night?
I mean, can it be even further downside?
The whole thing takes place on the porch. There are no other sets and there are 4 actors.
So here's actually going along with my Harlem setting. I think it'd be interesting to set the whole thing in a Harlem jazz club, and you could even kind of play with the onstage backstage of it all, and or set it in the Plaza Hotel in a way where all the idea of the backstage, all the idea of the front porch scenes and whatever happen backstage. And it's just kind of one unit set that keeps rotating. And we really get a sense of like the wealth that Jean is seeking with the, on stage aspects of it and the audience out front. And then these young kids in the backstage that are like, working at the theater or maybe the entertainment and are desperately wanting to get out of there and build a better life for themselves.
Yeah. What I also like about your restyling of it is something that I've noticed as I'm going through the Sondheim milieu is that he really only has 2 shows where he specifically tries to include other ethnicities that aren't white, and that's West Side Story and Pacific Overtures. And part of that is because he's always been so adamant about like, I don't know anything other than like what I grew up with. He's like, I'm a white Jewish boy from the Upper West Side. Like, who am I to write about the plight of the African-American woman, which is fair. At the time with which he sort of was coming up in the ranks of musical theater, he was sort of the only kind of person that was writing for theater. So part of me is like, you could have used your platform for those kind of stories a bit more. I mean, it didn't stop Arthur Lawrence from writing those stories, and maybe Hallelujah Baby's not the best show in the world, but he gave it a good old college try. And on top of that, in like the shows of Sondheim's where he really kind of comes in his own, like Company, Follies, Night Music, those same year of the Tony Awards, you start to see shows that are trying to do that with non-white creators. So you have Me Nobody Knows, Bubbling Brown Sugar, Don't Bother Me, I Can't Cope. These shows that like have an impact at the time and then kind of get swept under the rug after the fact while the Sondheim shows get to live on. So it would be nice to sort of reclaim one of the Sondheim shows and have that sort of start to correct the imbalance with that catalog.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, you get the sweeping under the rug because of the patrons of the theater and
Sure.
the regional theaters and who goes to that.
Well, it's important to note that the stories in musical theater, with Broadway shows anyway, that are in musicals that are about non-Caucasian characters, the ones that last are the ones that are written by white writers. So like Dreamgirls, Color Purple, those are shows. The only one I can really think of before like 1990 or even 2000 is The Wiz, that has like a Black creative team that is about, Black people. But, on top of that, we don't really, all shows that have an Asian cast are written by white men up until that point. Pacific Overture's Flower Drum Song, Miss Saigon, Hispanic characters. It's good that we are discussing it and that we are, working towards that. We should have been working on it a long time ago, but we can only sort of work with what we have, which is where we're at. So it's good that we are working towards it now. But yeah, and I want more shows, not necessarily having to like repurpose old ones as sort of like a toss off. However, because it's Sondheim and because he's important, because everyone should have their shot at Sondheim, I like your concept for Saturday night. It also makes the show more interesting to me. And that is where I'm at, because I'm a basic bitch and I need shows to be interesting.
Yeah, it's also about, you want to move forward and progress the art form and progress the industry. And that is giving, a voice to writers of color, writing for actors of color, writing for characters of color. Mm-hmm. But, you also, we want to not forget the history we have come from and how do you pay tribute to what's come before us while also progressing forward and getting to a place where you can look back on some shows that are problematic and say, like, we can close the book on that, and that's never going to get fixed. And so it is what it is, and we just don't need to deal with it.
Well, it comes from moving forward, right? Because people, and this is not anything new, and it's not just theater, it's everywhere. People harp on the past because it's what they know, it's what they remember, it's what they were able to survive. And I talked about this on a podcast that I guested on, talking about Fiddler, about like why people in Fiddler are so into tradition, which is, adding a sense of structure to life and things that they can control, but also this idea of, our traditions have gotten us this far. We've survived with our traditions. Like, who's to say if we were to get rid of them, what would happen next? And so that's where a lot of people get iffy about progress, because they're not sure what it might lead to. However, it's necessary to survive. So what I'm trying to say to your question there, Kevin, this is all coming around. I swear to God, I have a point.
Yeah.
Is that the best way to look back on the past and sort of be able to close the chapter on some things that are maybe problematic is to then kind of counteract with like creating something now that does what that show did at the time, It's like,
exactly.
And having our own version of it that's less problematic. That's something that we can all enjoy together now. So we can eventually come to a point where we look at a show like Flower Drum Song and we can say, this moment in history that's important that we don't ever need to do again because we've been able to do better since.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of times those people with that's are afraid of change and saying the tradition and all of that are people who up to that point have benefited from the way things are. And what we've learned is there's a whole sector of people that have not benefited from the way that things have been. And so we must let go of traditions in order to, encompass and welcome in. And it goes all the way to the top and all the way in this industry as well. How do we, welcome in, truly make people who have felt excluded for years or have felt othered feel like they belong as much as those of us that have felt like, they belong.
And on top of that, because you brought it up a second ago, and I want to emphasize this, that doesn't mean sanitizing the past to make it more palatable for the present. We have to know where we were to know where we're going. And I don't think anyone benefits from, making troubled history squeaky clean for consumption.
Yeah.
Which was a problem for a while when people were doing updated versions of older shows or doing shows that took place in an older period. And I'm like, you're not helping anybody by trying to make this more PC or more woke, if something said in the 1920s, it's, you got to be honest with what's going on here. And it'll make us appreciate how far we've come and how much further we have to go.
Right. I mean, I'm Jewish and I would be horribly offended if I came to see a production of Cabaret and the Nazi aspect was sanitized.
If they were like, you know what? We understand now after that number you just sang, handshake.
Yeah. I mean, that show, and that's something that's, I bring that up because that's an experience that I can speak of as, I can speak of being Jewish, and so that's the history around Cabaret. The Nazis were there and that's what it's about. So why are we going to shy away from that? You have to, and if we get to a place where that no longer becomes acceptable to see on stage, then we have to retool that and rethink that. But you can't just suddenly erase Nazism from Sound of Music or Cabaret.
Just like you can't erase that a lot of Saturday Night doesn't work. So it's our job to fix it.
Yes. So I want to bring in all Black creatives and we'll do a Harlem version and see if it works. We'll workshop it. It may not work. It may not work,
but we're going to set it in a Harlem nightclub. I love all of that. Kevin, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. It was like we veered and then we got back to Saturday night. We veered and we got back to Saturday night.
I mean, I'll be interested to see what I cut out. These are longer episodes by nature, just so everybody knows, depending however long this episode ends up being in its final form, know that it was over 2 hours. So if you have issues with the length, just know it used to be a lot longer, but I will definitely keep a lot of our tangents because I like them. Kevin, where can people find you on the social media if you want them to find you?
I am at Kev Metz, METZ, on Twitter and Instagram. And I guess TikTok, but I'm not.
This will be airing, I believe, in May, end of May, or maybe even beginning of June. Will MT Trivia still be happening by then, do you think?
Yes. Our plan right now is to go through the end of May and then take a summer hiatus.
Okay.
But you can catch MT Trivia if it's still happening in May. Wow, what a beautiful May day this is, Matt.
Oh my God.
It's gorgeous out. MT Trivia is on Broadway Talk Live network, which is broadwaytalklive.com. You can find us on YouTube or Facebook. And we're every Monday night at 9:00 Eastern.
Love it so much.
Okay.
And you can find me on Instagram at Matt Koplik, usual spelling. If you like the podcast, guys, give it a nice 5-star rating. You could write a little review if you like. You don't have to. Saying how much you enjoy it, how much you hate my voice, how much you love my voice, but you hate the podcast. Anything you so damn well please. The algorithm is real. And, we are all but slaves to it. You know what I mean? Trying to think of who we should close out as our diva this evening for Saturday night. Because we've spoken about her so highly, I think we have to do Miss Lauren Ward.
Lauren Ward.
Yeah. Whether we do Violet or Matilda is still up for debate. But
you got to do Violet.
I don't know. Maybe I want to close out on a... Maybe I want to close out on a bummer with My House. This is my house. My house.
Beautiful song.
Oh, I love that song. That song devastates me, but I don't know if it's a song you close out on. I don't know. We'll see. TBD. We'll find out in May now, won't we? All right.
Exciting.
Thank you so much for listening, guys. Have a great week. Catch us next week when we talk about another Sondheim musical that finally makes it to Broadway, One Assassins. Catch you later, girls. Bye.
I am on my way. Before another sunrise wakes me, before another night